the surprise that shattered our family reunion. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. During my toast, a stranger set a DNA envelope beside the cake. My voice stalled over the microphone as every head in the rented hall turned toward her. I'm Ivy, 29, a community nurse who knows how to stop a bleed, keep a secret, and hold a hand at 3 a.m. My skills matter in ways our family rarely sees. We gathered to honor our grandmother, Eileen, second year since her passing, first reunion since the pandemic. Uncle Victor orchestrated everything with the polish of a campaign manager. Name tags in cursive, a slideshow set to strings, a centerpiece that looked like a florist solved a math problem. He loves events that behave. I'd written a short toast about Grandma's roses and her habit of labeling every jar, every memory, every story with a date, as if truth could be Tupperwared and stacked neatly. I didn't plan for a stranger in a navy dress to step forward and place proof where dessert should be. The woman didn't want applause. She wanted a table, a power outlet, and us silent. She introduced herself as Mara and placed a flash drive by the envelope. I was asked to deliver these items, she said, glancing at Victor. He smiled like a man who's already planned the punchline. Tessa, my older sister, squeezed my arm. Don't make a scene, Ivy, she whispered. If this is about Uncle's tribute video, just let him handle it. I stepped down from the makeshift stage and felt the room's temperature shift. Aunt Ruth, Grandma's younger sister, removed her cardigan with the care of someone about to roll up sleeves. You look like Eileen when you're nervous, Ruth murmured to me. But Eileen always wanted questions answered. Mara clicked open a laptop and angled the screen to the room. The first file was labeled, Last Message, Eileen. The second, Certified Letter, Amended Will. The third, DNA Results. Victor clapped his hands. Everyone relax, he said, voice buttery. I coordinated a surprise to celebrate Mom's legacy. But his eyes kept cutting to the door, measuring exits, as if the surprise could explode. I felt what I always feel when a monitor starts to beep faster. That creeping pull to move closer, to watch, to listen. Because something in Victor's grin didn't fit the rhythm of his words, and I knew a pulse was about to crash. The stranger pressed play, and my grandmother's voice filled the room with unfinished business. Grandma's face appeared, thinner, more shadow than cheekbones, filmed on a phone propped too low. If you're hearing me, she said, someone tried to tidy up my story. People cried softly, others folded arms. Victor stood behind the projector like a stagehand timing curtains. I remembered the summers in her kitchen, the way she patted dough like prayer, and the way she patted our shoulders the same, sturdy and warm. She used to say, don't let men who love mirrors hold the ledger. Victor didn't love mirrors, he loved audiences. He was the reunion's conductor, the man who picked the playlist, hired the caterer, booked the hall, and wrote the tribute program containing exactly 2 sentences about me. Ivy works at the clinic. Helpful. Last week, while stuffing name tags in plastic sleeves, he'd joked within earshot. Nurses are saints, sure, but they're basically hospitality with syringes. Laughter rustled through the cousins. I pretended not to hear. Grandma's recording continued. You'll see papers I signed. You'll see other papers I did not. Her eyes flicked to someone off-screen, then back. If there is confusion, ask Ruth to bring out the blue tin. Ruth pressed a hand to her mouth. The blue tin lived in her attic. Years of church bulletins, marriage certificates, a lock of Grandpa's hair from '72 that no one discussed. Mara paused the video to hold up the certified letter. This name's a previously unknown heir, she said softly. The room drew tighter, voices webbing between tables. Tessa leaned in. Let Victor run this, Ives. He'll keep it dignified. Dignified meant quiet. Quiet meant controlled. Controlled meant whatever Victor wanted it to mean. A aunts and cousins committee formed spontaneously around the dessert table, which suddenly felt like a war desk. In a corner, children dragged chairs to see the laptop. I stood still and felt something settle in my ribs, a refusal to be managed like part of the decor. Grandma asked us to listen, which meant she expected a fight we could still win. The first red flag wasn't Mara or the envelope. It had fluttered days earlier. Victor had demanded everyone update the guest list through him only, then printed a program with a memorial timeline that included a will reading completed entry dated 3 months after the date on the probate notice. I'd shrugged it off as a formatting mistake. Then I overheard Victor on the phone in the hallway saying, "No, it needs to be executed before Saturday, understood?" Now, as Mara spread documents on a tablecloth patterned with roses, I noticed more seams. The amended will bore a date stamped after Grandma's second hospitalization, when we rotated shifts at her bedside and watched her sign only the meal delivery slips. The witness names meant nothing to any of us. A notary seal gleamed like a badge where it shouldn't. "Uncle," I said, keeping my voice level, "who handled this?" He smiled at me in that way people smile at toddlers playing with scissors. "Paperwork is boring, sweetheart. Tonight is about legacy, not legalese." Aunt Ruth shifted her weight like a ship finding new weather. "Legacy rides on paper, Victor," she said. "Where did you file it?" Mara held up the DNA report. "This indicates a first-degree relationship between Eileen and—" She glanced at the stranger's name and chose not to say it aloud yet. Tessa gripped my hand. "If there is a cousin we never met," she whispered, "what if they need us?" My sister's compassion could lift a room and drown a boundary in the same motion. I told her, "We'll help anyone who's real." My voice surprised me by sounding like Grandma's. Warm, then iron underneath. The projector hummed louder, as if to cover the silence that followed. My pulse counted seconds in my ears, the way it does when a patient's oxygen dips and the room pretends it hasn't noticed. Victor raised his glass. "We're spiraling," he said, cheerful. "Just enjoy the slideshow. I'll schedule a proper family meeting." But he refused to look at Ruth, which told me we were already in one. The DNA envelope lay between the cupcakes like a fuse no one dared touch. Escalation found me under the paper lanterns, where Victor decided the microphone loved him more. "Career day," he joked, inviting relatives to brag for 60 seconds. When it was my turn, he grinned. "Ivy helps people with ointments and forms," he said. Laughter pebbled across the hall. I stared at the mic and thought of Mr. Line, my morning patient, whose son I called after we stabilized him so he wouldn't die alone. I put the mic down. Just then Mara lifted the DNA result again and spoke over the laughter. "There is also a petition to change the deed on Eileen's house," she said. A courier, brown uniform crisp, strode through the side door like he'd rehearsed the timing. "Delivery for Victor Hayes," he announced, and held out a manila envelope with a courthouse stamp. Process server, I thought, not courier. Victor took the envelope, thumbed the seal, and paled half a shade. "Administrative," he said, stuffing it into his jacket. Aunt Ruth moved closer. "Read it," she said. His smile returned, but without teeth. Later, Ruth. "People traveled. Dessert is melting." Tessa whispered, "Please, can we not do this here?" I understood her. Dignity feels like control when you're scared of mess. But I'd watched too many crises worsen during waiting. I asked Mara, "Who retained you?" She hesitated. "Eileen," she said finally. Before she passed, she paid me to deliver only if certain filings appeared at the registry. Victor laughed flatly. "Cute story." Mara opened her phone to a note with a date and a bank transfer reference number. Victor turned to the slideshow again, cued a video, and 100 photos of Grandma's garden began to bloom on the wall. They were beautiful, undeniable, the kind of images that melt suspicion into nostalgia. Around me, shoulders dropped, plates scraped. The room tried to remember laughter. A cousin shouted for more coffee. Someone started stacking paper cups. A toddler banged a spoon like a gavel. I saw how quickly normal can be staged, how easily evidence can drown in frosting and noise. But in the fourth photo, a kitchen calendar betrayed the alleged signing date. By morning, the family split into factions. The Keep It Calm group gathered at Victor's rental, sipping weak coffee and scheduling smaller conversations that sounded like containment plans. The Ask Ruth group met at the old house, where the porch swing still chirped the tune of our childhood summers. I felt torn. Tessa texted, "Please don't push this to Facebook drama." I answered, "I won't." But drama wasn't a platform. It was oxygen leaking from a tank nobody had checked. Ruth took me up to her attic to find the blue tin. Dust ribboned in sunlight, and for a moment I saw Grandma everywhere. The shape of her scissors, the way she tied string, a recipe card smudged with butter. "Your uncle forgets," Ruth said, "that Eileen carried our names on paper like photos in her wallet." She handed me the tin. Inside lay birth certificates, church directories, and 2 property tax receipts with Grandma's neat block letters. The dates mattered more than they first appeared. We found a notarized letter from 3 years ago naming Ruth as temporary health proxy if Victor traveled. It wasn't the same as guardianship. It certainly wasn't rights to amend a will. I took a picture. "If we go to the registry, you'll see other filings," Ruth said. I didn't want to go alone. Victor likes to tell clerks the line behind him is his. Tessa called. "Please," she said, voice low. "Just give him time to fix it quietly." I closed my eyes and imagined handing morphine late. "Quiet doesn't make pain kinder," I said. She sighed. "You always turn everything into tree-off." "Because delays bleed," I said. She hung up to keep from choosing a side out loud. Downstairs, the cousins debated Mara's motives. Upstairs, Ruth found a shoebox labeled repair receipts that held bank slips written house upkeep in Victor's slanted hand. The amounts were tidy, round, professional-looking, as if someone wanted them to vanish into budgets without leaving a fingerprint. The slips lined up with cash withdrawals days before every so-called update to Grandma's will. Suspicion became a plan the moment I opened my email and saw a bank alert titled Irregular Activity Notice, Estate-Linked Account. Grandma's account should have closed months ago, but the notice showed automatic transfers labeled Garden Maintenance Fund. Grandma's garden could feed a Sunday, not a ledger. I printed the alert, tucked it with the tax receipts, and wrote 3 questions in my notebook. Who signed? Who witnessed? Who benefited? At the clinic, between vitals and vaccine updates, I called the county recorder. A patient's granddaughter sat nearby coloring a son with too many rays. "Yes," the clerk said, "there's a deed change pending, filed by Hayes Realty Services." Victor had named his consulting hustle something that sounded legitimate enough to pass a casual glance. "Can I see the supporting documents?" I asked. "Public record," the clerk said. "Come before 4. I told Ruth I'd drive. She insisted on coming, dressed in the good coat that still smelled faintly of mothballs and Chanel. "We ask questions, we don't accuse," she said. "But we do not apologize for asking." On the way, Tessa texted again. "If there's a true heir, do we have to fight this?" I typed back, "We honor truth. We resist theft." That felt like Grandma speaking through my thumbs. At the recorder's office, the fluorescent lights hummed like tired bees. The clerk slid a folder across the counter. Inside, an affidavit naming Mara's client as heir and a copy of an amended will with 2 witness names and a notary seal I didn't recognize. The dates overlapped with Grandma's hospital readmission, when we'd watched her fall asleep before finishing a cup of tea. My stomach tightened. I'd seen expired meds kept on carts because paperwork lagged. People trusted labels more than dates. "Photocopies are 50 cents, the clerk said. "Photos are free," Ruth replied, already clicking. We photographed every crease, every marginal note, every smudged seal that pretended to be official. On the last page, a staple shadow hid a commission that expired months before the signature. Breadcrumbs fell fast once I stopped trying to hold the party together. I called Grandma's former home health aide, Lorraine, who remembered everything in verbs. "He hovered," she said about Victor. "He whispered. He moved mail." She also remembered the day 2 men arrived with clipboards and left with nothing because Ruth insisted on reading line 3 twice. I thanked her, and she laughed. Eileen taught us to read lines backward when men hurried us forward. At First Bergen Bank, a manager agreed to confirm whether activity matched the maintenance stories. "I can't give details without court order," he said, "but I can tell you whether you should seek one." He checked a screen, inhaled, and pointed us to a customer service number for estates. "Ask for Daniel," he said. The way he avoided eye contact told me which answer he wished he could say aloud. Ruth and I ate drive-through fries in the parking lot and made a list, our fingers salt-shiny, our notebooks grease-dotted, like detectives who shop at pharmacies. We would call Daniel, ask about transfers labeled for the garden fund, and write down dates. We would visit Ms. Delgado, the notary listed on several filings, even though her office lay 2 towns over. We would copy the deed history for Grandma's house and verify any guardianship or proxy paperwork during her hospitalizations. We would, in Ruth's words, pretend Victor is a stranger who only speaks performance. On the way back, a text arrived from an unknown number. "Please stop before you embarrass yourself." Another ping followed. "Families forgive quiet mistakes, not public betrayals. The threats wore politeness like cologne. I looked at the number again and saved it anyway. That night, while the family group chat traded casserole recipes, Daniel called back from a blocked line and confirmed a pattern I feared. Cash advances, then filings, 48 hours like clockwork. Someone wanted the money to move before questions could learn to speak. The mini twist arrived at Ms. Delgado's office, a small suite above a laundromat that smelled like steam and receipt paper. She greeted us with the careful cheer of someone allergic to drama. "I notarize signatures, not stories," she said. We showed her copies. She pulled out her journal. Every notary keeps one, and ran her finger down the dates. Then she stopped. "I was on medical leave that week," she said. "Look." Her entries jumped from Monday to the following Thursday with a note, "Surgery recovery." The will copy claimed she notarized on the Wednesday between. "Could someone else have used your seal?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "My seal was in a safe, but I did have a temp covering front desk." She flipped to another page. Victor Hayes came in 2 weeks later to ask how long it takes to correct a minor stamping error. I told him errors aren't minor if they change time. Ruth showed the DNA report. Ms. Delgado exhaled. "The error question is separate," she said. "But if notarization is false, the filing crumbles." She wrote a short statement for us confirming her absence on the date cited. Her handwriting was clean as scaffolding, every letter bracing the next so nothing collapsed under pressure. We thanked her and headed for the stairs when she called after us. "Also," she said, "someone from Hayes Realty dropped off cupcakes last month with a thank you note I didn't understand." In the car, I stared at the cupcake's detail like an X-ray, tracing edges, imagining fingerprints and frosting, wondering who smiles when bribery tastes like vanilla. We drove to the house to find Tessa on the porch, twisting a napkin into thread. "I know you think he's lying," she said. "But what if Grandma really wanted this quiet?" I told her truth could be quiet, but fraud preferred quiet. Ruth opened the door, set the blue tin on the table like a gavel we could finally swing, and nodded toward the dining room, where Grandma kept her sternest portraits. The portraits seemed to watch us choose between peace and proof. We made a plan at the dining table under Grandma's gaze. Step 1. Assemble proof into a single timeline with receipts, bank alerts, recorder entries, and Ms. Delgado's note. Step 2. Invite Tessa to witness every step so she wouldn't have to take my word against Victor's charm. Step 3. Call Mara and ask what, exactly, her client claimed and whether that claim predated Victor's filings. Step 4. Schedule a meeting that Victor believed he controlled, then let the paper speak. "Paper talks like thunder if you stack enough clouds," Ruth said. We opened laptops and fed the printer until it groaned. I labeled page corners and wrote a script the way I write discharge instructions. Clear, short, no wiggle room for misunderstanding. Tessa watched, arms folded, then uncrossed. "If we're wrong," she said, "we'll ruin everything for nothing." I met her eyes. "If we're right," I said, "we'll ruin a lie that's already ruining us." Mara answered on the second ring. "My client is named Lila," she said, "and she has test results showing Eileen is her mother." She paused. "But Lila never asked to inherit the house. She asked to be recognized at the table." Silence pulled through me like thread, stitching shock to relief in the same seam. "Then who filed for the deed change?" Mara exhaled. "Hayes Realty Services, same as your records." I wrote Lila. "Wants a seat, not a house in my notebook," and underlined it twice. We decided to invite Lila to the meeting too, so no one could weaponize her absence. Finally, we called MS Delgado to block time with a bank officer who could confirm the transfers were not authorized by any legitimate caretaker power. She proposed Thursday at 4, when the branch manager would be present and the cameras working, and when recording consent forms would be easy to sign. I sent Victor a message suggesting a family resolution session, with a notary present to avoid misunderstandings. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, then added a wink I felt like a shove. The close call came sooner than Thursday. Victor invited us for lasagna on Tuesday, like reconciliation baked with cheese. His dining room smelled like basil and strategy, the kind of scent that convinces people they're safe while papers shift under napkins. Lila was there, smaller than her roomers, holding the DNA report as if it might burn. Victor introduced her with a flourish, then hugged her too long. "Family," he announced. "Isn't that what we want?" We passed plates, We passed silences. We passed the weight of things unsaid like hot casserole dishes. I didn't come for the house, Lila said, eyes on the tablecloth's pattern. I just wanted to know if I had a grandmother who loved roses like I do. Victor squeezed her shoulder and scanned Tessa for approval. Tessa nodded, hope groping for purchase. He turned to me. Ivy, he said, you turned a celebration into a deposition. Maybe you can fix it by apologizing to Lila. I will apologize, I said, for not knowing her sooner. I folded my napkin, but not for checking dates or asking where Grandma's money went. Victor's smile lost its topsoil. Money keeps houses standing, he said. It's impolite to ask how bricks are paid for. He poured wine, then leaned in low so only I heard, the crystal catching chandelier light like a blade's glint. If you keep pushing, the clinic might hear that you violated confidentiality talking about Eileen's hospital days. I felt the blood leave my hands. He was aiming at my license, the thing I earned one shift at a time. I looked at Lila. Did you authorize any filings? I asked. She shook her head. Mara told me to bring documents and not sign anything. Ruth set down her fork like it was a gavel. Thursday, she said. Notary, bank, paper. Victor's jaw clicked once, twice, like a lock trying to remember its combination. After dessert, Victor offered coffee, but the pot gurgled like a warning. Thursday came wearing rain. We filed into Ms. Delgado's office. Ruth, Tessa, Lila, Mara, and me, while Victor arrived late carrying a smile and a folder too slim for truth. Ms. Delgado had invited Daniel from the bank and a branch manager named Patel, who brought a laptop and a portable scanner. We're here to avoid misunderstandings, Delgado said, by letting the documents speak for themselves. Patel outlined the rules. We'd review transfer histories, confirm authority, and record any statements everyone consented to. Delgado slid out her journal and the letter about her medical leave. Daniel logged into the estate account and projected the screen onto a small monitor. Numbers lined up like fence posts across a field. Withdrawal, withdrawal, deposit, fee, withdrawal. Daniel highlighted each cash advance and read the memo lines aloud. House upkeep, garden care, porch painting. He paused at one labeled Consulting Honorarium, then looked at Victor, then looked away. Victor opened his slim folder and produced a receipt. It showed a camera purchased from an electronics store 2 towns over the day after Grandma's memorial. Patel compared the timestamps. This is not associated with the estate, he said gently. This is personal equipment. Victor shrugged. Tools to honor her memory. Ruth asked about guardianship. Daniel shook his head. We have no documentation granting financial control to any family member during hospitalizations. Delgado tapped the notary seal on the amended will copy. This commission expired before the listed date, she said, and the witness names don't match any entries in my log. Victor's smile thinned into rope. Is this a trial? He asked. No, Delgado said. It's a weighing. She turned to Lila. Did you file for the deed change? Lila lifted her hands, empty, palms trembling. Patel raised an eyebrow, then quietly asked permission to verify the number on the stamp. Delgado dimmed the lights and cued the last file on Mara's drive. Eileen, last message. Grandma's voice filled the room again, steadier than in my memory. If anyone tells you I changed my will while I was too tired to bake, please bring me a chair in spirit, she said, smiling. I'll sit beside Ruth and say the date out loud. She leaned toward the camera. June 3rd. Delgado paused the video and wrote the date on a pad. The amended will claim June 10th. Play the ending, Ruth whispered. Delgado pressed play. Grandma's eyes brightened. I left the rose plates for Tessa and the recipe box for Ivy, she said. Victor loves parties. He'll make one from ashes if you let him. Please don't. The video ended on Grandma's laugh, the one that clattered like a drawer of spoons, and the room answered with a sound halfway between a sob and a prayer. Patel cleared his throat. The transfers labeled maintenance do not correspond to vendor invoices or checks, he said. They're cash advances against the estate card. That's not standard. Daniel nodded. And the estate account should be dormant. We show activity. Delgado slid her medical leave note across the table next to the notary seal printout. Lila folded her hands over the DNA report and blinked hard, as if keeping water from rippling over ink, as if letters themselves could drown when truth finally arrives. Victor stood too quickly. I was protecting assets, he said. I was preserving sentimental value. Ruth's voice changed keys. You were preserving access, she said. Different thing. He pointed at Lila. She wanted the house. Lila shook her head with such force her earrings flashed. I wanted my mother's name, she said. I wanted roses. Delgado turned the monitor slightly, letting numbers glare like noon on a windshield. Mr. Hayes, she said, you need counsel. He chose rage over shame and reached for the power cord. Delgado caught his wrist before plastic met socket. We don't unplug truth, she said, and the line was so clean it became a boundary in the room. Patel called the bank's legal department while Daniel documented the session. Victor sat, breathing through his nose like a bull that just noticed the fence is electric. Lila excused herself to the hallway and cried into a tissue that turned to lace, then came back with eyes bright, as if she'd ironed her courage. By evening, the recorder's office placed a hold on the deed change pending review. The bank flagged the estate account for audit and suspended the card. The family chat exploded with exclamation points, then went silent as though someone had knocked over the speaker. Tessa came to my apartment and sat on the floor with me, backs against the couch, knees up like we were 12 again. You could lose him, she said. He's our uncle. I could lose my license if I let threats steer me, I said. And we could lose the house if we let charm rewrite dates. She nodded, scrubbed her face. I'm mad at him, she said, and I'm mad at you for being right. We laughed because grief and relief sometimes share a jacket, swapping pockets when the weather changes without warning. Work didn't let me hide or pretend I was just a niece. A supervisor pulled me aside. Someone had called the clinic suggesting I violated privacy discussing Grandma's hospital days. I showed the policy, the logs, the fact that I never shared specifics outside the family. Document everything, my supervisor said. Be boringly correct. Ruth texted a photo of the blue tin stationed like a guard at her doorway, as if paper could sleep with one eye open. That week, I woke too early and found Victor's text. You made enemies. Enemies make messes. Messes stain careers. I deleted it and wrote my notes anyway. The hearing date circled our calendar like a storm we could finally name. Healing doesn't look like victory. It looks like forms, appointments, and boundaries written in ink. We met with a mediator who recommended appointing a neutral trustee until the court finalized decisions, someone with no last name we recognize and no holiday photos in our albums. Ruth agreed to oversight. Tessa asked for a schedule to visit the house without running into Victor. Lila brought roses from her garden and placed them in Grandma's cracked pitcher, as if mending could start with water and stems. Therapy helped, too. I sat in a small room and said out loud that I was afraid of becoming the family cop, of losing tenderness to policy. The therapist nodded and asked about my hands. They shake less, I said. They shake when I smell basil. We laughed, then didn't. She suggested I write conditions for help, like discharge instructions. So I did, with bullet points and little checkboxes that made my shoulders drop half an inch. I drafted a document and shared it with the family. We would help one another only under conditions written and signed. No more hush agreements. No more trust me. If someone asked for money from the estate, they'd show invoices. If someone invoked Grandma's name to stop questions, they'd sit down and answer instead. We stapled it to the fridge like a chore chart for grown-ups who finally remembered consequences and didn't want to forget them when the next casserole arrived. Victor, through his lawyer, sent a statement that he regretted any confusion created by administrative imperfections. The bank froze the estate card permanently and reversed suspicious fees. Ms. Delgado filed an affidavit about the notary seal. Patel emailed a clean procedure for closing the account once the court appointed the trustee. In the evenings, I took slow walks past the clinic and breathed on purpose, counting steps the way I count compressions when seconds stretch like rubber. One night, Tessa slipped her hand into mine and said, "You protected something none of us could see until you named it." Then my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize, and the message made me sit down hard at the kitchen table. It said he wasn't finished, and neither, apparently, was the truth. The message was from Lila, a photo of Grandma's rose bush blooming out of season, petals stubborn against late rain. "I thought you'd want to see this," she wrote. It felt like a benediction from the woman who taught dough and dates in the same lesson. I stood at the sink and let the water run warm until it smelled like pennies and soap, and I let myself cry without apologizing to an empty room. The hearing came and went without spectacle, just the soft click of a recorder and the soft scratch of pens. The court appointed a trustee, paused transfers, and scheduled a fall review. Victor's lawyer promised cooperation. Ours promised patience, the kind that holds a line even when it shakes. In the hallway, Lila hugged us in a circle like a new family photo that didn't need a house behind it. I keep boundaries now the way I keep sterile fields at work. Clear, simple, respected, re-explained when necessary, without apology. If someone asks me to look away, I remember that looking closely is a form of love that keeps people safe, and that questions can be a blanket, not a blade. The clinic told me my documentation saved me. My supervisor said my comm saved a shift when a man collapsed, and we stitched order from panic with tape and voices. Accuracy heals in small places first. If your family loves parties more than ledgers, start with dates. Make a folder. Photograph stamps and signatures. Ask for authority in writing. Explain guardianship in plain language, especially to anyone who pretends not to understand. Don't confuse peace with quiet. Quiet can be a tarp over a fence someone else is climbing. Keep receipts. Keep names. Keep going even when your hands shake. One hopeful thing. The roses in Lila's photo, red as a stop sign, kept opening after the storm tried to flatten them. One practical thing. Truth grows with small, stubborn questions and courage. I saved the photo, printed Patel's closure steps, and slid our conditions for help into the blue tin. Ruth says the porch swing still chirps. Tessa asked if Lila can come for Thanksgiving. I said yes. The surprise didn't just shatter us. It traced the cracks we needed to mend. We began to mend on purpose, with needle, thread, dates, and names. Tomorrow we meet again, and I'm bringing a pen and patience.